You know, when people hear the word Stoicism, a lot of times they think about being cold, unemotional, maybe even robotic, like someone who never laughs or never cries and just kind of stares into the distance without any feelings. But the truth is, Stoicism is not about becoming a stone statue. It is not about shutting down your emotions. It is about learning how to live better with the emotions you already have. It is about training your mind so that when life hits you with chaos, with problems, with heartbreak, with unexpected storms, you do not collapse under the weight. You stand, you breathe, you think clearly. That is what Stoicism is, and that is why it has lasted for more than 2,000 years. Now let's imagine for a second you are waking up tomorrow morning. Your phone buzzes. You see an email from work. And right away you feel stress because something went wrong overnight. Maybe a client pulled out. Maybe the project you thought was safe suddenly fell apart. In that moment, your chest tightens, your stomach twists, your thoughts start racing. That is life in 2025, right? It is fast, it is full of uncertainty, and it is incredibly easy to feel like the world is spinning out of your control. Stoicism steps in right there. Almost like a hand on your shoulder saying, hey, pause, breathe, remember this. You cannot control everything, but you can control how you respond. And that shift, that one mental reframe, is the beginning of building a Stoic mindset. The philosophers who developed Stoicism lived in a world that was just as chaotic, maybe even more brutal than ours. Marcus Aurelius was literally running an empire while dealing with wars, plagues, betrayal, and the constant pressure of leadership. Epictetus was born a slave, lived with pain every day of his life, and still managed to rise up as one of the greatest teachers of philosophy. Seneca was a politician, a writer, a man constantly pulled between power and danger in the Roman world. These guys were not sitting in ivory towers writing about theory. They were living in the real mess of human life. And the reason their words still hit home today is because the problems they faced are not that different from ours. We may not be fighting in Roman wars, but we are fighting stress at work. We may not be emperors, but we're dealing with the weight of responsibility. We may not be ancient slaves, but we all know what it feels like to feel trapped by circumstances we did not choose. That is why Stoicism is timeless. So let's strip Stoicism down to its core. The foundation is something called the dichotomy of control. That is a fancy way of saying there are two categories in life: the things you can control and the things you cannot. And most of us spend our entire lives tangled up in the second category. We worry about what people think of us, whether the economy will crash, whether someone will like us back, whether the weather will ruin our weekend plans. None of that is in our control. And yet we obsess, we stress, we lose sleep. Stoicism flips the script. It says, forget about that. Put your energy where it actually matters, in the things you can control: your thoughts, your actions, your choices, your effort. Once you lock in on that, suddenly life becomes lighter. You are no longer dragged around by every storm outside of you. You become anchored. That is the Stoic mindset. Now I want you to think about your own life. Think about the last time you got angry at something. Maybe someone cut you off in traffic. Maybe a coworker said something rude. Maybe your kid didn't listen to you for the 5th time in a row. In that moment, did your anger change the situation? Probably not. Did it fix anything? No. But what it did do was steal your peace. Stoicism teaches us to pause and ask, is this within my control? If it is not, then let it go. That doesn't mean you suppress the anger. It means you release it, because holding on to it is like holding a hot coal. It only burns you. That's practical Stoicism in action. And here's the thing. When you first hear it, Stoicism can sound simple, almost too simple, like, yeah, I get it, control what I can, ignore what I can't. But the truth is, living that out every single day is a lifelong practice. It is like going to the gym. You do not just lift weights once and suddenly you are strong forever. You train, you repeat, you build muscle. Stoicism is training for the mind. The more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. The more you remind yourself of Stoic quotes, the more you journal about your day, the more you reflect on what you can control, the stronger your Stoic mindset gets. Until one day, you notice you are no longer thrown off by the little things that used to ruin your week. That is growth. Another thing people misunderstand about Stoicism is they think it is about being detached, like you are not supposed to care about anything. That is not it. Stoicism actually pushes us to care deeply, but wisely. Marcus Aurelius loved his family, his children, his friends, and he admitted the pain he felt when they suffered. But he also knew that clinging desperately to what he could not control would only make that pain worse. Stoicism says, love fully, engage deeply, do your duty with all your heart, but do not let your happiness depend on things outside your control. That way, when life inevitably changes, you can still stand. That is strength, not coldness. Let's bring this closer to home. Imagine you are scrolling social media late at night. You see someone who looks like they have it all together. Perfect body, perfect house, perfect job, perfect smile. And suddenly you feel small, like your life doesn't measure up. Stoicism would step in and remind you, comparison is outside your control. What other people post, what other people achieve, that is their lane, not yours. Your lane is your thoughts, your work, your values. So instead of spiraling into jealousy, a Stoic mindset would shift you toward gratitude, asking, what do I already have that matters? What can I do tomorrow that aligns with my values? That's how Stoicism turns envy into clarity. And let's be real. In America today, where consumerism and social media scream at us every second that we are not enough, Stoicism feels like an antidote. It is not about buying another gadget. It is not about chasing endless likes. It is not about proving yourself to the world. It is about living in alignment with reason, with virtue, with what you can control. And that, ironically, is what gives you the confidence everyone else is chasing. When you live with a Stoic mindset, you stop needing validation because you already know your worth. So if we are going to talk about building a Stoic mindset that lasts, we have to start with practice. You can't just watch one video or read one quote and expect your mind to transform. You have to integrate Stoicism into your life the way you would integrate exercise or a healthy diet. Daily, consistently. And one of the easiest ways to start is with journaling. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations as a personal journal, not as a book for us to read. He was writing notes to himself, reminding himself how to live each day. You can do the same. At the end of each night, ask yourself, what did I face today that was outside my control? Did I waste energy fighting it? What did I control well today? Where can I improve tomorrow? That simple practice slowly reshapes your mind. That is the gym of Stoicism. Now I know what you might be thinking. Okay, this sounds good in theory, but does it really work when life hits me with something big, like losing a job, going through a breakup, or facing illness? The answer is yes. In fact, that is when Stoicism shines the most. Small problems are just practice for the big storms. When you train yourself every day to focus on what you can control, then when a massive wave comes crashing down, you already know how to stand. You already know how to breathe. You already know how to act with clarity instead of panic. That is why Stoicism is not a hobby. It is a survival skill for the soul. When people first start practicing Stoicism, they often expect some instant transformation, like they'll suddenly become calm monks untouched by stress, traffic, or criticism. But the truth is, Stoicism is not magic. It's a discipline. It's like building calluses on your hands. At first, everything feels raw, uncomfortable, even painful. Over time, though, the more you practice, the more resilient you become. And one of the core practices that builds this resilience is reflection. Stoics believed in examining their day, questioning their reactions and adjusting their mindset over and over again. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Let's say you had a rough day at work. Your boss criticized your presentation. A colleague interrupted you in a meeting. You came home feeling drained and frustrated. A non-stoic response might be to complain, to stew over it, to replay the scenario 100 times in your head, maybe even to take it out on your family. But a stoic response would be to sit down quietly at night and reflect. Okay, which of these things were in my control? Was the boss's reaction in my control? No. Was the colleague's interruption in my control? No. But what was in my control? My preparation, my tone of voice, my patience, my ability to respond without anger. That's where the power lies. And tomorrow, you can act differently. That's Stoicism. It doesn't promise that bad days disappear. It promises that you'll handle them better. Now I want you to imagine Marcus Aurelius. He's sitting in his tent on the battlefield, candles flickering, soldiers outside, enemies closing in, plague spreading through the camp. He picks up a wax tablet and writes to himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Think about that for a second. This is not a man sipping wine in comfort. This is an emperor facing pressures we can barely imagine. And yet he's reminding himself of the same truth you and I need today. That when the world feels too heavy, you still have control over your inner life. That is the anchor of a Stoic mindset. But let's bring it to our time, because it's easy to romanticize ancient wisdom and forget how it fits into the 21st century. Picture this. You wake up, grab your phone, and before you've even had coffee, you're hit with news alerts. Wars, disasters, political chaos. Your brain is already flooded with things you cannot possibly influence before you've even started your day. Stoicism would suggest a pause. Before diving into the noise, remind yourself, is this within my control? Can I personally change the headlines I just read? No. But I can control whether I doom scroll for an hour or whether I take a walk outside, breathe, and prepare myself to be useful where I actually have influence. That little mental shift might seem small, but it can literally save your peace of mind every single day. Another powerful Stoic practice is something called negative visualization. Now, at first that might sound depressing. Why would anyone want to imagine bad things happening? But the Stoics use this as a way to prepare their hearts. They would spend a few minutes imagining loss, failure, even death, not to be morbid, but to remind themselves of the fragility of life and to strengthen their gratitude. Seneca once wrote that we should rehearse adversity so that when it arrives, it won't catch us off guard. For example, think about your phone. Every day, you rely on it. But what if tomorrow it stopped working? How would you respond? Would your entire world collapse? Or would you simply adjust and carry on? Practicing negative visualization is like doing fire drills for the soul. You hope you never need it, but when disaster comes, you're ready. That preparation is the heart of a Stoic mindset. And here's the paradox. By imagining loss, Stoics actually enjoyed life more. When you picture losing something, a loved one, your health, your freedom, you suddenly appreciate it more deeply while you still have it. That morning coffee tastes richer. That hug from your kid feels more precious. That walk in the sunshine becomes a gift. Stoicism trains you not to take things for granted, but to live awake. In a culture where we are constantly distracted, constantly rushing, Stoicism feels like an invitation to slow down and notice what matters. And that awareness, that gratitude, becomes armor against stress. You stop chasing endless wants and start savoring what is already here. Now let's talk about control again, because this is the heartbeat of Stoicism. Control is everything. The Stoics divided life into two buckets, what's up to us and what's not. That's it. Not 3, not 5, just 2. And here's where most of us trip. We live as if the second bucket, what's not up to us, is actually ours to command. We get angry at the weather. We rage at politicians. We fume over other people's opinions. But no matter how much energy we spend, we don't change those things. All we change is our own peace. The Stoics say flip it. Pour your effort into the first bucket. Your choices, your judgments, your actions. That's where freedom lives. That's where strength grows. And when you practice this long enough, it becomes second nature. You stop wasting energy on the uncontrollable, and suddenly you have more focus, more calm, more power where it counts. There's a modern example I love. Imagine two people stuck in traffic. One person is slamming the steering wheel, yelling at other drivers, heart pounding, blood pressure rising. The other person is calm, maybe listening to an audiobook, maybe just breathing quietly. The situation is identical. The cars aren't moving, but one person has lost control of themselves while the other remains free inside. That's Stoicism in action. The traffic is not up to you, but your response, that's 100% in your hands. That's the Stoic mindset, choosing calm when chaos surrounds you. And this isn't just about minor inconveniences. It applies to massive life storms too. Imagine losing your job. Imagine hearing difficult news from your doctor. Imagine betrayal from someone you trusted. In those moments, Stoicism doesn't tell you not to feel. It doesn't tell you to smile and pretend everything's fine. What it tells you is, focus on the next right step that is within your control. You cannot undo the past. You cannot rewrite what just happened. But you can control your courage, your actions, your decisions moving forward. That shift turns despair into resilience. It turns paralysis into motion. That's why people who adopt Stoicism often find themselves not broken by hardship, but actually sharpened by it. There's another practice the Stoics leaned on, and that is journaling. Not just Marcus Aurelius, but many Stoics wrote daily reflections. Why? Because writing slows the mind. When thoughts stay in your head, they spin, they tangle, they race. But when you put them on paper, you see them clearly. You can challenge them. You can decide if they align with Stoic wisdom or not. Journaling is like mental housekeeping. Every night, Marcus Aurelius would remind himself of truths he already knew but needed to hear again. That's what building a mindset is. Repetition, reminder, practice. The same way you don't eat one healthy meal and declare yourself healthy forever, you don't reflect once and declare yourself wise. Stoicism is daily nourishment for the soul. And let's be honest, we live in a world that loves quick fixes. People want instant results. They want a hack, a shortcut, a magic bullet. Stoicism refuses that. It says wisdom is earned, peace is trained, virtue is built one choice at a time. That's not glamorous, but it's real. And the payoff is priceless. Imagine being unshaken in moments that used to break you. Imagine being calm when others panic. Imagine walking through life with clarity when everyone else is lost in noise. That is the fruit of Stoicism, and anyone can grow it if they practice. I want you to think about one of the hardest moments in your life. Maybe it was the day you lost someone you loved. Maybe it was the day you were laid off unexpectedly. Maybe it was a breakup that left you questioning your worth. We all have those chapters, and if you are human, you will face more of them. Life is not gentle forever. Life is unpredictable, and it can hurt deeply. Now here's where Stoicism steps in with something incredibly powerful. It does not promise to erase the pain. It does not tell you that you should not cry or that you should not feel grief. Instead, it says, let the pain be there, but don't let it consume you. Feel it, but don't become it. That's the difference between drowning and swimming through the storm. One of the most quoted lines from Epictetus is this: we suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them. What does that mean? It means the raw event, the breakup, the job loss, the illness. That's just what happened. The suffering multiplies when we add our stories, our labels, our spiraling thoughts. I'll never recover from this. I'm worthless. Nothing ever goes my way. Those judgments intensify the pain. Stoicism teaches us to separate the event from the story. The event is outside our control. The story we attach is within our control. And when we master that, we reclaim power. Let's put this into a modern example. Imagine someone ghosts you after dating for a few weeks. It hurts, right? Your brain immediately starts building stories. I wasn't good enough. I'll always be alone. People always leave me. But pause. What if instead you applied Stoicism? The fact is, they stopped communicating. That's the event. Your judgment, your spiral, is what creates the ongoing suffering. A Stoic mindset would say, their choice is not in my control. My worth does not depend on their response. What is in my control is how I carry myself moving forward, how I choose to respond with dignity. That shift turns heartbreak into an opportunity for growth instead of endless self-punishment. Another pillar of Stoicism is virtue. For the Stoics, the goal was not fame, wealth, or comfort. The goal was to live a virtuous life. Virtue meant wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Those four are like the compass points of a Stoic life. And honestly, think about how refreshing that is in our world today. We are bombarded with messages that success means a bigger house, a flashier car, more likes, more followers. But the Stoics would say, none of that defines your worth. Your worth comes from how you live, how you treat others, how you act when no one is watching. That's virtue. And a Stoic mindset keeps you oriented toward it no matter what the world shouts. Now let's take this into everyday American life. Say you are at work and a colleague gets the promotion you were hoping for. Instantly, jealousy bubbles up. You start thinking, why not me? I worked harder. Life is unfair. Stoicism would step in with justice and temperance. Justice reminds you, it is not your role to resent others for their path. Temperance reminds you, control your desires, control your envy. A Stoic mindset would reframe it. Their success does not diminish mine. What's in my control is continuing to grow, to serve, to improve. That doesn't mean you ignore ambition. It means you channel it wisely. That is freedom. Let's talk about courage, because Stoicism without courage is incomplete. Courage is not just about running into battle. Courage in the modern world might mean speaking up in a meeting when you'd rather stay quiet. It might mean setting boundaries with someone who disrespects you. It might mean admitting when you are wrong. And Stoicism fuels that courage by reminding you, the outcome is not in your control, but your action is. So you act with integrity regardless of the result. That's what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. That line can feel radical in a culture obsessed with results. But that's what makes Stoicism so grounding. It shifts your measure of success from outcome to action, from applause to virtue. Wisdom, justice, courage, temperance. Imagine if every decision you made was filtered through those four lenses. Would this choice make me wiser? Would it make me more just? Would it make me more courageous? Would it build temperance? That's a Stoic mindset checklist, and it can change everything. Because instead of chasing external validation, you anchor yourself to internal virtue. And once you live that way, you become almost unshakable. The storms of life may bend you, but they won't break you. Now I want to pause here and say something important. Stoicism does not mean becoming indifferent to joy. Some people think Stoics are joyless, walking around saying, nothing matters. But the truth is the opposite. Stoicism frees you to enjoy joy without clinging desperately to it. When you know everything is temporary, you savor more deeply. When you stop obsessing over outcomes, you actually relax enough to laugh, to play, to be fully alive. Stoicism is not gray, it is technicolor. It makes the highs brighter because you are not afraid of losing them, and it makes the lows bearable because you know they will pass. That's balance. Think about your phone again. Every year a new model comes out, shinier, faster, with more features. If you attach your happiness to owning the latest, you are trapped in an endless loop of dissatisfaction. But a Stoic mindset would remind you, Does this phone allow me to do what I need? Does it serve my purpose? If yes, then why crave more? That temperance saves you from the hamster wheel of consumerism, and ironically, it often leads to deeper financial freedom too. Stoicism is not just philosophy, it's practical. It shapes how you spend, how you work, how you live. Let's talk about anger, because anger is one of the hardest emotions for any human to master. Seneca wrote an entire essay called On Anger, where he said anger is temporary madness. And isn't that true? Think about the last time you exploded at someone. In the moment, it felt righteous, it felt powerful. But after, regret, embarrassment, broken relationships. Stoicism trains us to see anger as weakness, not strength. Real strength is staying calm when provoked. Real strength is responding with clarity instead of impulse. And that is not easy, but with practice, a Stoic mindset makes it possible. Next time you feel anger rising, try this. Ask yourself, is this in my control? Will this matter in a week? Will this matter in a year? That pause alone can save you from doing something you can't undo. I think one of the most radical gifts Stoicism offers is the idea of memento mori. Remember you must die. That sounds dark, right? But it's actually liberating. The Stoics reminded themselves daily that life is fragile, short, and unpredictable. Not to be depressed, but to be awake. When you carry memento mori in your heart, you stop wasting time on nonsense. You stop procrastinating on what matters. You tell people you love them now. You chase the project that matters now. You live fully because you know the clock is ticking. In a culture that often acts like we'll live forever, Stoicism is a wake-up call. And when you accept mortality, you actually live more deeply. So let's put all this together. Stoicism is not about becoming emotionless. It is about mastering your emotions. It is not about ignoring life. It is about engaging with life wisely. It is not about escaping reality. It is about facing reality with courage and clarity. A Stoic mindset is like a shield and a compass at the same time. It shields you from being destroyed by chaos, and it guides you toward virtue. That combination is rare and powerful, and it is available to anyone willing to practice. Money is one of the biggest stressors in modern life. If you ask people in America what keeps them up at night, most of them will say something like bills, debt, saving for retirement, or the fear of losing their job. And honestly, it makes sense. We live in a society where your rent, your mortgage, your kids' education, even your basic health care is tied to money. So when Stoicism talks about wealth, it can sound strange at first, because the Stoics keep saying money is indifferent. They say it is not good or bad, it is neutral. What matters is how you use it and how attached you become to it. And that is a radical thought in a world that treats your bank account like a scoreboard of your value. Let's break that down. Say you get a bonus at work. Great. Stoicism doesn't tell you to reject it or feel guilty. It says, enjoy it, but don't cling to it. Don't let your happiness rise and fall only with your income. Because if that bonus disappears next year, or if you lose that job and your identity was wrapped up in the number, you will collapse. A Stoic mindset says, take the money, use it wisely, be grateful, but remember your virtue, your character, your discipline, that's your true wealth. Money can be stolen. Money can evaporate in a crash, but virtue can't. That is why Epictetus, who lived as a slave, could still say he was free. His mindset was unshakable because it wasn't chained to a paycheck. Think about how many people spend their lives chasing bigger paychecks, bigger houses, newer cars, just to keep up with someone else. The Stoics would call that a trap. Seneca was one of the wealthiest men in Rome, but even he wrote about the danger of becoming a slave to luxury. He said, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor. Let that sink in. Poverty isn't just lacking money. Poverty is endless craving. If you make $100,000 a year but always want 200, you'll feel poor. If you make 50,000 but learn contentment, you'll feel rich. That's Stoicism applied to finance. Wealth is not about numbers, it's about mindset. Now, I know some people push back here. They say that's easy to say if you're not living paycheck to paycheck, and they're right. Basic needs matter. Stoicism doesn't ignore that. You need food, shelter, safety. But Stoicism adds a layer of freedom even in those struggles. For example, if you lose your job, yes, you will feel fear and stress. But Stoicism says, don't add extra suffering by saying, I'm worthless, my life is over. The job is gone. That's the event. Your dignity, your creativity, your effort, your choices, that's still yours. And those are the things that will get you back on your feet. Stoicism keeps you from collapsing mentally even when finances collapse externally. That's resilience. Here's a very modern scenario. Imagine the stock market crashes. Your retirement account takes a big hit. Everyone around you is panicking, selling, shouting about doom. A Stoic mindset would ask, is this in my control? Can I control the market? No. Can I control global politics, inflation, or interest rates? No. What can I control? My spending, my saving, my emotional reaction, my ability to keep learning and adapting. That's where you put your energy. Because panic doesn't just hurt your peace, it makes you make bad decisions. Stoicism protects you from that spiral. It doesn't give you magic money, but it keeps you calm enough to make wise financial moves instead of reckless ones. Let's talk about debt. So many Americans live under the weight of credit card debt, student loans, car payments, and the mental toll of debt can be crushing. You feel chained. You feel like every paycheck is already spoken for. Stoicism can help here too. First, it asks you to accept the reality. Debt exists. You can't wish it away. Getting angry at the system or at your past self doesn't change the balance. What is in your control is your next decision. Will you keep swiping that card? Will you keep living beyond your means? Or will you take control today and start cutting expenses, start paying down little by little? A Stoic mindset reframes debt from a monster that eats you alive into a challenge that you train against. Each payment is progress. Each act of discipline is freedom, and you stop letting shame paralyze you because shame is wasted energy. Action is what matters. Another key Stoic lesson for money is temperance. We live in a culture that tells us happiness is always in the next purchase. Advertisers spend billions to convince you that your life is incomplete until you buy this car, this phone, this pair of shoes. But Stoicism says, pause. Ask, do I really need this, or am I chasing a feeling? Temperance is self-control, and when applied to money, it saves you from endless debt, endless clutter, endless chasing. You start spending based on values, not impulses. You buy what serves your life, not what impresses strangers. And that shift can completely change your financial future. A Stoic mindset turns money from a master into a tool. Let's bring this closer to home with a story. Imagine two friends. One makes a high salary, lives in a big house, drives a luxury car, but he's stressed, always in debt, never content. The other makes an average salary, lives in a modest apartment, drives a used car, but he saves consistently, spends mindfully, and lives according to his values. Who is richer? The first one looks rich but feels poor. The second one looks average but feels free. That's the Stoic definition of wealth. Freedom, not flash. And when you adopt that mindset, you stop caring about keeping up with the Joneses, because you realize the Joneses are probably drowning in payments anyway. Stoicism gives you the courage to live below your means and the wisdom to feel satisfied. Now, think about career stress. In America, so many people tie their entire identity to their job. When they get promoted, they feel valuable. When they get criticized, they feel worthless. Stoicism breaks that chain. It reminds you, your job is what you do, not who you are. Your character, your virtue, your mindset, that's who you are. So if your company lets you go tomorrow, you lose a paycheck, but you don't lose yourself. That's powerful. It means you can walk into any job interview with calm confidence because your value is not hanging on someone else's opinion. That kind of mindset actually makes you more employable, more attractive as a leader, because people can sense when you're grounded. Another financial angle where Stoicism helps is generosity. Seneca wrote about giving freely without expecting return. The Stoics believed that wealth, when hoarded in fear, shrinks your soul, but when shared with wisdom, it expands it. A Stoic mindset toward money is not greedy but generous, because you're not obsessed with clinging. You know money comes and goes, but virtue, gratitude, and relationships are what matter. So you give where it matters, you invest in people, you invest in causes, and you let go of the fear that generosity will make you poor. In truth, it makes you rich in the only way that counts. Let's be real. Financial stress is not going away in our culture. Prices rise, jobs change, markets swing, but Stoicism arms you with the ability to stay steady in the storm. You learn to control your desires, to master your spending, to work hard without making money your god, to face losses without losing yourself. And that combination makes you almost unbreakable in a world where money often breaks people. That's why building a Stoic mindset isn't just philosophy, it's financial resilience. It's the ability to walk through ups and downs without being owned by them. And that, honestly, is priceless. So here we are. We've walked through what Stoicism really is. We've broken down the myths, and we've explored how it shows up in daily life. From anger to loss, from career stress to money management. And now the big question is this. How do you actually take all of this and make it part of your life? Not just another video you watched and forgot. Because here's the truth. Stoicism only works if you practice it. It is like exercise for your mind and soul. Watching someone else lift weights will not build your muscles. Reading someone else's journal will not build your resilience. You have to pick up the weight yourself. You have to write the journal yourself. You have to apply the principles when life throws you into the storm. And you don't have to do it perfectly. Let me emphasize that. You don't have to become Marcus Aurelius overnight. You don't have to walk around like some sage who never gets annoyed, never gets sad, never feels temptation. You're human. You will slip. You will lose your temper sometimes. You will waste time on things outside your control. That's okay. Stoicism isn't about never failing. It's about catching yourself sooner, adjusting quicker, and building strength over time. If you get angry today and stew about it for 3 hours, maybe next time you stew for only 1 hour. Maybe the time after that, you pause after 10 minutes and breathe. That's progress. That's growth. And growth is the whole point. So let's talk about where to begin. The simplest way to start practicing Stoicism is to keep one question alive in your mind every day. Is this in my control? That's it. Write it on a sticky note. Put it on your phone wallpaper. Ask it when you're stressed at work, when you're scrolling social media, when you're fighting with your partner, when you're worried about the future. Is this in my control? If yes, act with virtue. If no, release it. That one practice can save you hours of wasted energy and years of unnecessary suffering. It sounds small, but it is life-changing. Another way to start is journaling. You don't need fancy leather notebooks or elaborate rituals. Just grab a notebook or even a notes app on your phone. Every night reflect. What did I do well today? What triggered me that was outside my control? How can I respond better tomorrow? Keep it short, keep it honest, keep it daily. Over time, you'll see your own patterns, your own progress. You'll start noticing that the things that used to wreck you now barely move the needle. That's the Stoic mindset being built, brick by brick. And of course, read the sources. Read Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. Read Seneca's letters. Read Epictetus's Enchiridion. But don't just read them like textbooks. Read them like letters to yourself, because that's what they were for Marcus, for Seneca, for Epictetus. They weren't writing to impress others. They were writing to remind themselves how to live. So when you read, let the words land. Let them challenge you. Let them reshape your thinking. and then apply them the next time you're stuck in traffic or staring at a bank statement or grieving something you can't change. Now let's zoom out for a second. Imagine what the world would look like if more people lived with a Stoic mindset. Imagine if politicians made decisions based on wisdom and justice, not ego and anger. Imagine if businesses were run with temperance and courage, not greed and fear. Imagine if families practiced patience instead of exploding at every little mistake. The ripple effect would be enormous. Because Stoicism doesn't just make your personal life better, it makes you a better citizen, a better leader, a better parent, a better friend. It creates calm in a world that thrives on chaos, and we need that now more than ever. But let's bring it back to you. Because right now you have a choice. You can treat Stoicism as something interesting, something you kind of know about, something you quote once in a while when it's convenient, or you can decide to actually build a Stoic mindset that lasts. That means practicing every day. That means reminding yourself of the dichotomy of control. That means choosing virtue over impulse, wisdom over ignorance, courage over fear, temperance over indulgence. That means writing in your journal even when you're tired. That means pausing in traffic instead of exploding. That means letting go of envy instead of feeding it. It is not glamorous. No one will applaud you for it in the moment. But over time, you will become someone people look at and think, how are they so calm? How are they so steady? How do they handle life without breaking? And you'll know the answer, Stoicism. And here's the beautiful thing. You don't have to wait for tomorrow. You can start right now. The next thought you think, the next word you say, the next choice you make, that's all in your control. And if you choose wisely, you're already living like a Stoic. That's how accessible it is. It's not locked away in some ancient temple. It's not reserved for emperors and philosophers. It's for you, for me, for anyone willing to practice. So here's my challenge to you. For the next week, every day, pick one Stoic principle and actually apply it. One day, focus on controlling what you can. Another day, practice negative visualization and appreciate what you have. Another day, journal at night. Another day, pause before reacting in anger. Just one principle a day, 7 days. By the end of the week, you'll notice a shift. Maybe small, maybe subtle, but real. And from there, you can keep going. That's how habits form. That's how mindsets are built. That's how Stoicism becomes more than a word. It becomes your way of living. And if you're watching this right now, it means you already care. It means you're already searching for a better way to live. That alone puts you ahead of the crowd, because most people never stop to question their own mind. Most people never pause to ask, am I living wisely, or am I just reacting? You're here because you want more than just reacting. You want strength. You want clarity. You want peace. And Stoicism can give it to you if you let it. So let me leave you with this. Life will not get easier. You will face loss, stress, setbacks, pain. That is guaranteed. But with Stoicism, you can get stronger. You can meet those challenges with calm. You can live with courage. You can walk through storms without losing your center. That is the gift of a Stoic mindset, and it is available to you starting right now. The question is, will you practice it? If you want to keep going on this journey, stick with me. Subscribe to this channel because we're going to keep exploring Stoicism, Stoic quotes, and practical ways to build a Stoic mindset that lasts. Share this with someone you know who's struggling, because Stoicism isn't just for you, it's for the people you love too. And drop a comment below. Tell me, what's the first Stoic principle you're going to practice this week? I want to hear it, and I want you to commit to it out loud, because sometimes saying it is the first step to living it. All right, that's enough for today. Remember, control what you can, let go of what you can't, and live with virtue. That's Stoicism. That's the mindset that lasts, and I'll see you in the next video.